Hello, welcome to Creative Content, the heart of digital experience. I'm Andrew Hally, Chief Marketing Officer at Bynder, and I've been a marketer in the technology industry for about 20 years, and a lot of that actually in the MarTech industry. So this topic, this intersection of technology and branding and marketing has been a real interest and passion of mine for a long time, and I'm happy to be able to talk to you about it today. So I'm going to pick up where Barrett left off yesterday, and to restate the obvious, it's a digital first world now, right? E-commerce is now over 18% of retail sales, and that's kind of mind-boggling when you consider retail sales includes gasoline and automobiles and all kinds of things like that. This was a trend that was happening for quite a while, but really got a boost with the pandemic. 60% of organizations accelerated their existing digital transformation efforts in response to COVID. And it's had a lot of impact, right? As the world goes digital first, the power of traditional differentiators and marketing tactics is fading. And in their place, digital experience is really in the driver's seat when it comes to many businesses today. Now, digital experience it opens new vistas for us, but it also throws up challenges for us as marketers. So in the former category, with business being so online, digital first, a lot of the traditional barriers to rapid business growth have fallen away. Distribution, getting a retail presence, etc. Hence the explosive growth you see of lots of direct-to-consumer upstart brands. In part, that's with social amplification online, right? Now, when you deliver a great digital experience, friends of customers are going to hear about it. Of course, on the downside, when you deliver a not so great digital experience, they're going to hear about it also. And it's not going to go well for you because another aspect of the digital economy is that consumer expectations have been set sky high for the digital experience by digital natives like Netflix. And when consumers' expectations aren't realized, they will not hesitate to switch. The Acquia study found that 63% of consumers are willing to abandon a brand just because of poor digital experience. So what exactly is digital experience anyway? I wanted to divert for 1 second and hit this point. Now, on the one hand, it's obvious a digital experience is any interaction between a brand and a customer, a buyer, a potential buyer that takes place over digital channels, whether it's mobile, websites, e-commerce, social, what have you. But I wanted to bring up one subtlety to this to make sure that my topic has the breadth here. Digital experience has traditionally referred to a brand's owned media channels, their website, their social media presence. But I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today applies not just to a brand's owned media, but also to paid and earned media as well. So I'll use the term digital experience, but I do mean that completeness there, not only owned media channels. With that said, digital experience, it's not a new topic. We've been, as marketers, it's been important, for a decade or more now. But when we look back, and a lot of the conversation about digital experience and personalizing digital experience, a lot of the excitement about the technology possibilities, it's really been a lot around the touch points, the data, the analytics. These are the topics that have been hogging the spotlight. But recently, I think something's changed, and it's a realization that there is no digital experience without creative content. You think of an experience like this that Amazon brings, and yeah, sure, there's powerful analytics running behind it that remember that I had ordered this martini glass for my wife, maybe movies I like to watch. But look what grabs you here is the compelling visual content here. Now, this has always been the case at some level, right? The digital experience has had content. But I think the thing that's different is that in the new modern conception of personalized digital experience, that creative content has elbowed its way to the adults' table. And it's really fundamental to a great digital experience alongside data analytics and the touchpoint systems. So that's what I think is different now. So let's dive a little deeper into that. What defines great digital experience? There's been a lot written about this, of course, but I think when you boil it down, there's 4 things that are really critical. Fast, a digital experience has to be speedy and responsive. Consistent. A great digital experience is consistent across time, across channels. Personalized. A great digital experience is personalized. It's targeted. It's relevant. And then finally, impact. A great digital experience, it's impactful. It grabs you. It brands. It differentiates. It's memorable. Let's dive into each of these, and let's look a little bit about what role creative content plays in delivering these 4 pillars of digital experience. So starting with speed, it's simple. Speed thrills online, and being slow kills. 2 seconds, Google benchmarks found that 2 seconds of increased page load time means about 1/3 of your customers will bounce away. Now, on the contrary, every second of load time that Walmart was able to save, they found about a 2% increase in conversions. So speed is critical to conversion. And beyond that as well, it's now important to being found. Website responsiveness and speed is now a critical part of search engine rankings. So if you want consumers, if you want buyers to find your site, it has to be fast as well. What impacts, how does creative content impact speed of digital experience? In a big way. According to the HTTP archive, about 75% of page weight is driven by virtual content. And this makes sense intuitively, right? Like the modern digital experience has lots of great imagery, video, and these are large file types. There's a lot of memory there involved with these types of files. And it's more complicated than now than it used to be. It used to be just web pages were pretty simple things that were static content pushed, but today's digital experiences, right, targeted digital assets, they've got to be algorithmically determined, retrieved, and rendered instantly and at scale. So speed is critical, but more complicated than it used to be. The second pillar of digital experience is consistent. A great digital experience is consistent across channels. Now, brand consistency is not new, right? Consistency has always been an important goal for brands. Consistency brings recognizability, it brings trustworthiness, and these sorts of feelings are really important, especially in the consumer realm, where it's been written that 95% of consumer purchasing decisions are really driven by subconscious things like feelings of trustworthiness. And furthermore, if you're not consistent, in addition, you'll pay a price. According to Salesforce's State of the Connected Consumer report, up to 73% of consumers are likely to switch brands that can't deliver a consistent level of service across channels. It's also challenging to deliver that consistent experience across channels today. We have more platforms than ever. According to a survey by Redpoint Global Harris, there's about the average brand has about 10 engagement platforms today. And these digital touch points are a lot easier to switch between than the offline touch points, right? It's when you're online or you have your mobile, it's quite easy to switch, and therefore it's easier to see and spot lack of consistency and be impacted by lack of consistency across channels. So consistent digital experiences are difficult, but again, getting a little more complicated to deliver. The third important pillar of a great digital experience is personalization. Now let me pause here for 1 second and just define carefully what I mean here. I guess technically speaking, personalization might be something specific to one individual, like me, Andrew, as a consumer, having my name on something, or that specific product I had looked at, right? And that is part of personalization, but I think the term is used more broadly, and I use it more broadly here. It's not just one-to-one sort of things, but it's also anytime you're trying to be very segmented, you're trying to be very targeted with your market and focus in narrow segments, that all is kind of lumped into personalized. So that's what we mean by a personalized digital experience. And it's pretty clear that when done well, a personalized digital experience improves conversions, creates stronger brand connections. I cite here a couple research reports from Epsilon, from Accenture, that found between 80 and 91% of consumers are more likely to purchase when delivered a personalized experience. Yesterday, actually, there was a neat data point here from Alexander from Pernod Ricard, where he spoke of just swapping out city names for Absolute Vodka video ads to local markets, increased recall 35%. So clearly, personalized digital experiences are worth doing. However, personalization demands a lot of creative content. the more you try and target with content, it's an explosion of content that's needed for that, right? And which is why the big brains at McKinsey, put it this way, that marketers cannot match this volume of content demanded by personalization. Gartner found a similar thing when they surveyed CMOs. 31% of them said that content was the number one barrier to personalization. And again, I think a couple of years ago, they would have no doubt talked about data, about analytics, but today, content central to digital experience, including personalized digital experience. Take Bynder, for example. We market across 4 different languages. We do a lot of advertising with Google, with Facebook. Google has, I believe, 12 different size and ad variations. Facebook has 5. And we try to be good marketers and test everything we do. So if you just take that set of permutations of our targeting and personalization efforts, each digital asset we want to bring out, we have a combination of 136 versions we might need to create. So you can see how personalization drives a lot of demands from creative content. The 4th pillar of great digital experience is impact. What do I mean by that? An impactful digital experience is one that engages you. It's one that stands out. It grabs you, it lodges in your brain, it differentiates your brand, right? This is getting harder to do online. Part of it has to do with our incredible shrinking attention spans, right? We long ago had past goldfish at having a short attention span online, and now we're somewhere in the vicinity of a gnat of around 1 second. How do you engage someone when you've got just a second? You better have some great, impactful, creative content. Also, you need great creative content to stand out across the digital sameness that we see so much online. As we try to keep up with the content volume demands online, we have less time to create unique content, and we see this sea of digital sameness sometimes across online, and it's hard to stand out from. And there's actually, if you look out over time, there's even a more fundamental sort of sameness that we're at risk of falling into: experience sameness. Now, I got to shout out this report here. Forrester, desperate for differentiation, really laid this thinking out, which I found really, really interesting. There's 3 parts to it. So first of all, we as brands, we're all trying to communicate through the same screen. And increasingly, it's a small screen. It's an Apple phone. It's an Android, right? So through the same screen. We leverage a lot of the same technology to deliver our digital experiences, whether that's lots of common loyalty systems, using Facebook ad optimizer, algorithms, things like that. A lot of the same technology components to build digital experiences. And then critically, we're often following the same goal, right? We're all trying to optimize the same sort of a path to purchase. Think of an airline, right? There's really the pretty much the same steps that you go through with your Delta, or if you're Southwest, or if you're KLM or Japan Air. It's the same set of steps to find a flight. You pick your destination, your departure, the dates. You look at the different flights. You optimize across price and length of flight, those sorts of things. It's a very similar experience. And so the risk is that we're going to end up having a very similar optimal sort of experience. And when that happens, the route to differentiation will increasingly be a strong, branded, great visual content. Great product, great content at the end of the day are going to be what brands and what differentiates. So we've covered the 4 pillars of great digital experience and how creative content is key to those things. But because this is a digital world, there's kind of a 5th element that's not so much directly impacting the quality of digital experience, but it's a context we all have to operate on, and that's speed and agility, right? In the digital world, things have to happen fast. You may recall people used to talk about internet time. You don't even hear that anymore. It's just assumed, right? Things that happen online have to happen fast. If you're going to take advantage of a competitive situation, a new consumer need, you have to be able to move very quickly. I think a great example that really stands out to me, Aviation Gin. Do you remember this one? It's Ryan Reynolds' brand, and he very quickly utilized the actress from that Peloton ad that was much pilloried and put her in a gin ad with martinis. Nailing that moment had to be done really quick. So the digital world puts a premium on agility, and often creative content can be the long tentpole in digital experience initiatives. Not just the development of it, but the transferring and utilization of creative content across all of the touch points can be very, very error prone and creating more delays. Now, if we add all this up, the 4 pillars of digital experience and what creative needs to do for that, as well as the context of needing to do this with new agility, we create quite a challenge for creative marketers. It's a trilemma, in fact. We need to produce a large and growing volume of creative variations to fuel personalization. We have to do this with shrinking development timelines to hit that agility and speed to market we need. And we have to do both of those without sacrificing the quality, the impact of the creative content we're creating. It's quite a challenge. There's also challenges downstream with creative content management delivery. First of all, the integration, right? We talked about all those digital touch points, having a system of record, getting content to those consistently is difficult. And in this modern context, just copying files around is not going to work anymore. There's a deeper integration is needed. Automation is the second important challenge for delivery management. We're moving from manual content picking, right, where a marketer would pick an asset and put it in an email, pick an asset, put it in a web layout. That doesn't happen anymore. This is all happening. It's algorithmically driven. It's software talking to software, right? It has to happen in automated, lights out fashion. And so creative content needs a whole metadata and management layer that can fulfill these algorithmic generated requests in a lights out sort of way, with the right controls, with the right consistency and compliance on top of that. And of course, performance, all of that needs to be done in milliseconds rather than seconds. So a lot to be done with distribution and management of content as well. So what are the implications for this kind of new world of creative content and digital experience? A common way to look at this is to look at people, process, and technology. So let's do that. So creative content is fundamental to digital experience, but getting it right, there's a lot of new things to consider, a lot of complexity. Let's take a look at how that breaks down. What are the implications for marketing teams? And let's do that by just thinking people, processing, technology. It's a good way to look at this. So starting with people, we actually got some insight from the State of Branding report that we just put out, where we asked a question, as we did a couple of years now, how do you plan to scale content creation? And as you can see, marketers plan to use both technology and people. So 52% plan to invest in technology. This is up 4 points over last year. Increasing internal headcount is at 48%. 48% of marketers plan to use this. That's actually up 9%. 48% still will plan to use partners and agencies and collaborate there, which is about flat. So more investment in technology, more increase in headcount to help solve this problem. That headcount increase internally is probably related to insourcing, right? Which is a trend. In addition to investing in technology and adding headcount potentially, another clear implication for people is IT collaboration. So if you don't know, your IT folks, your CIO, you'll probably want to get to know them to really be able to collaborate on making this all happen. And similarly, not just collaborating with IT, I think we'll see the need for continuing growth and technical expertise within the marketing department and increasingly within the creative department as well. So that's people. From a process perspective, I think the implication for these digital experiences impact on creative, first of all, is that the creative life cycle will evolve. It will become less linear and more parallel, with creative people collaborating with other people in the marketing team to deliver content, and it will be so less centralized and more distributed. I think those are some key trends we'll see. And related to that, the role of the designer will be to not so much create finished assets that get used downstream, but rather to create assets that are able to be turned into templates to enable that more parallel distributed creation of end-use content. And then finally, from a process perspective, is automation. We want to allow software to automate the grunt work. Let's let the machines do the grunt work. A lot of those things about variations, a lot of the distribution, the downstream, the management can be assisted, if not done, by automation. Finally, technology. What's the technology implication for the role of creative content and digital experience? MarTech stacks are mind-numbingly complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. But to think about this, we can really boil it down and think about the 4 fundamental components that support digital experience. There's obviously the digital touch points, the systems that consumers and buyers interact with, CMS systems, websites, things like that. So digital touch points. Second is the data that fuels all this, transactional data, customer data, data about things that people have looked at on the website. That's the second. This data fuels the third piece, which is analytics, decisioning, figuring out what to do with this data and how to personalize and deliver a great digital experience. And the fourth component is content, creative content. So, McKinsey actually calls these the 4 Ds of digital experience: data, decisioning, design, and distribution. So they can get clever. But again, these are the 4 pieces. What are the core systems for these today, right? I think the digital touch points are fairly well established. CMS, which is broadening into DXP or digital experience platforms. Data is your data hub, is your CDP. That's kind of the system of record for the customer data that then feeds analytical systems. And then when it comes to, the new kid in the block here, the content, the creative content piece, probably the digital asset management system is that core system for the creative content that will allow creative content to be properly powering this. But it's not your dad's digital asset management system, right? It's not old damn. It's really a new wave of digital asset management. And to just give you a little context about what we mean by that, if you rewind the tape back to when digital asset management got started, way back in the day, it was classic, software run on premise that your IT system ran on internal servers. Its job was really managing big honking digital files, and mostly done for the broadcast and publishing and other sorts of industries. But maybe, some years ago, Bynder and others innovated and brought digital asset management to the cloud, made it easy to deliver through a SaaS model, made the system of record for all creative content, not just big media files. And instead of being limited to just a couple of industries, it really, got mainstream adoption across industries and across the marketing team. And so that's where we've really been, what digital asset management's doing. But now these requirements on creative content coming from digital experience are really driving a third wave of DAM. And DAM as the content engine powering digital experience. The delivery model isn't just SaaS, it's an API connected ecosystem with the DAM connected with all of the content, with all of the touch points and other systems. Instead of just a system of record for content, digital asset management is becoming an automated content creation and distribution hub. And instead of just providing the single system of record where people can get assets, digital asset management really now has a fundamental role in driving the digital business. So there's a lot to unpack here. And in fact, the two other sessions we've got today will unpack this. Martin is going to talk about how digital asset management can help scale content creation. And Mark Teneglow is going to talk about how digital asset management can help optimize content management and delivery. So these are 2 sessions that you won't want to miss. But for me, having set that context, that's the end of mine. These are unsettling and fast-changing times, right? The digital world is creating a lot of pressure on marketing and on creative teams. It's presented us with this new trilemma, if you will. But technology advance is also bringing, I think, some solutions. And at the end of the day, what we do, creative content, is going to be more important, more valuable than ever. And what we do is going to be more important and more valuable than ever. I really can't wait to see what all you're going to come up with. Thank you.
Hi, Andrew. Welcome to Live. Hello. Hi, I've got some good questions here. I'm going to just jump right in. You mentioned the 4 Ds there. I'm curious, which of those Ds is the most successful in the MarTech stack?
Well, I think the most established has probably been the digital touch points, right? Everyone's got a CMS, e-commerce systems, but now certainly data analytics has really had a real run. AI, machine learning has certainly been in the press. So those are pretty well established. But I think the real takeaway from McKinsey, Forrester, Gartner, and others is that you need them together. It's a wheel, it's a car. You need all 4 wheels to really go down the street. So probably those 2 are more established, but moving forward, we need all of them.
Well, so, but that's interesting because that's kind of the thread that runs through everything that you seem to say, which is it is that integration is what is really the next step. It's not going to be like one more fruit in the sundae, as it were, but it's going to be that integration of everything working together.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you just think of experience, it almost implies, right, orchestration and integration. And we heard earlier from Craig and Faith at KPMG. That's really where companies like that are helping to do the hard work of stitching these systems together. It's definitely critical, but I don't think anyone would say it's easy yet.
Sure. Well, okay, that actually jumps into the third wave of DAM that you talk about as well, too. Okay, the promise is so clear and so tantalizing almost because I think we instantly like grab it and go, yeah, API driven runs the business. I mean, this makes perfect sense. What stands in the way from that dream?
Well, I'll first just tee up the next 2 sessions. I think they'll go in a lot more depth there. There's definitely a people dimension, right? Like there's resource are needed. That came up in some of the survey that we talked about. I think that's one reason brands are leaning on agencies, right? Agencies are often the shock troop in new change to help brands kind of get there. I think the downstream integration is a big barrier right now. So much time can be wasted in moving things around, making mistakes there. I think those would be a couple of ones that spring to mind. But again, I think Mark and Martin will have a lot more to say about that also, Andrew.
Oh, we'll look forward to that, absolutely. So you talk about an increase in spending on technology and an increase on spending on headcount and creativity. Are those not conflicting answers?
Maybe, certainly.
Shouldn't one mean less of the other, or is that not how it works?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting point that I think, first of all, to restate it, right, our survey found that this year 52% of brands are investing in technology to help with this content trilemma. That's up about 4 points, but 48% are investing in internal headcount, which was up 9 points. 48% are also going to lean on their partners and agencies. That's about flat. So I think at one level that just reflects uncertainty for brand leaders, marketing leaders. How do we address this trilemma? So I think there's some uncertainty, right? But beyond that, I don't think the relationship between automation and employment is necessarily or even frequently a zero-sum trade-off. I think recently of the explosion we've had in programmatic advertising, which is completely automated, right? But there's been a lot of employment growth there at the same time. I mean, sometimes you need both. And I think, output volume isn't the sole motivator as companies try and solve this trilemma, right? There's the agility, getting things done fast, and there's also maintaining, if not extending, impact and quality. So having more resources, automation isn't necessarily going to give you all of those things. So I think that's one reason why both probably are part of the answer.
Yeah, probably, I guess. Hey, as I was listening to you talk about automation, I had a thought, which is I wonder if the term automation actually is what it is going to turn out to be. And what I mean is when you use a spreadsheet, you don't think of the cell automates my mathematical process. You just think of that as the product. So, as this thing becomes more accepted and more understandable and more widespread, I wonder if it just disappears, how it's just, it goes in, it comes out. You don't even see the steps that it automates anymore. It's just sort of a natural speeding up progression. That's not quite a question, but I just.
No, I think, Andrew, you put your finger on something important and interesting. So, who knows what label we end up affixing to this set of, people process technology changes whereby we're able to really get a lot of content done quickly that's high quality, right? Maybe it ends up being called creative automation. A lot of it is actually kind of sharing out of creation, right? With designers building templates, and then marketers, in social, in regions, in partner channels, doing some of the last mile work on that as in ways that will really fit exactly what they need. So that's not really strictly automation. So I think it's a fair point that
it's just speed.
That term may not. Yeah, we'll see how that. I mean, maybe on brand 2023. Let's remember to come back and see what it's being called, right? And has it started to kind of fade into the background, as you're saying?
Interesting. Well, I look forward to on brand 2022 first. But thank you again for a fantastic explanation and illumination of a lot of these exciting ideas.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.